honestly was surprised at how much I liked the new one. It was not getting talked about as much as I thought it deserved.
For all the praise that Black Mirror gets, and the newer seasons of Black Mirror are subpar.
Right.
Especially once it went to an American production company, it's like already it dipped and then it dipped more.
And I didn't even like the earlier ones too. You know, I think there's a lot of. I know that's a whole episode in itself.
Tune in. Next year.
But I think I was equating it to that though. I think I was equating my reaction was gonna be like it's gonna be like another Black Mirror where it's just treating its audience kind of stupid or whatever. And I was pleasantly surprised by that. At least the episodes we watched.
And it's not that it wasn't marketed like well, because they did do a teaser during Super Bowl, like when I think it's the 2019 one, like was about to air. I think the problem is that it was on a streaming service that is a confusing streaming service because it's CBS Access instead of CB. Like, it's not like it's Netflix. It's that you have to kind of.
Well, it had like the Hannibal syndrome too. It's on a main network. You don't expect it to be as good. It's not going to be a good show. It's going to be underrated because it's like it's on a main thing. What can they possibly do? Well,
I basically said like, it's going to be like Black Mirror, but on network TV.
Yeah,
which I don't want to see that at all.
With CW,
Twilight Zone. Twilight Zone. Great, thanks.
That was my. So I was surprised at how good a lot of the metaphors or the writing was throughout all of it. It was very strong. I mean, let's talk about Not All Men from the second season, I think, right?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. What were your reactions to that? I'll tell you what you feel.
In a minute.
That was just. It was just so unsettling. It was there was so much anxiety with it because it was like, okay, I understand what they're trying to say and everything, but it's like, but what do you do? And also there was the one scene where they're just running in the street and there's no other women. It's like, oh my goodness, at least if it's the men that are being affected by this meteorite, then it's like, okay, well then
the survivors.
Where are all the women that also survived? And it's like, oh no, I don't think they survived at all. Because you see the one bloody woman with like her hair ripped out. I was like, oh, that is horrifying. And then it's like, you don't see them anymore.
Like, I can see why the episode is very polarizing to people too. It does, as much as I appreciate what they're doing, there does seem to be a lot of very ham-fisted kind of stuff. It seems like it's trying to get this idea across in a very broad way. As much as I like it, I think it also does kind of oversimplify some of the issues too. Like, remember how there's the one guy, I think during that same part, where he's like the good guy, or like he isn't changing or whatever. Mm-hmm. They just like abandon him.
Well, his voice starts to change, and then they realize that he's becoming one of them.
Does it?
That's what was so scary, was that he's saying, he's like, no, it's not me, and then all of a sudden his voice gets like really deep, and it's like, oh my god, it's about to turn. Oh, all right. Well, now you're gone, and now we can't be with you.
I think it's like that is where people are gonna get into that like camp of like the not all men mentality, where this almost is perpetuating that in a negative way. Like, because what is the ultimate? What is the point they're trying to make? Because it does seem like if you're a man, you are just fucked.
Well, that's why the son basically says, he's like, well, yeah, I could have turned, but I chose not to, and these people did not choose not to.
Yeah, isn't that oversimplifying it?
It's not that it's just oversimplifying. It's telling you exactly what there's like. It's not even letting it land. It's like, yeah, we probably could have figured that out, that it was that, because at one point I was thinking, it was like, okay, he didn't drink the shot with the meteorite in it, but then I was like, okay, but his boyfriend did, and then his boyfriend kissed him, and I was like, okay, well, everyone else was kissed by like their men and everything, and it didn't happen. I was like, oh, but it's a man kissing a man, or you know, that. So
they at least didn't make it like, if you're gay, you're also
right, exactly. But I thought it in the fact that I was like, oh, maybe it affected him because it's a man kissing a man as opposed to a man kissing a woman, where the woman, it's not affecting them at all. So then I was like, oh no, that's how he got like infected with it and everything. And then it was like, oh no, I've just been holding the stone this whole time. And I decided not to kill. It's like, oh, okay. And then let's take your blood. And there's nothing in your blood to even have like an antidote.
I think that's my issue with it, is that it fundamentally doesn't address. It's a hard thing to boil down into a short episode.
Yeah.
But it is, in a way, saying like, well, you just have the choice not to, but you're in a world that is doing the absolute opposite of that. So it's not addressing the core issue of, you know what I'm
how do you survive?
Like formula. I can't think of how to verbalize it correctly. Like, the choice isn't as simple as I chose not to. It's the not breeding it. I think maybe it was the act of ingesting a meteorite.
Right.
Undercut the thing they're trying to say there.
Well, that was what was so weird was that when I think they named him Dylan. He doesn't drink it. He just touches it when it when it bounces off of the like the water tower or whatever. So he doesn't even drink it. He just touches it, and then he becomes into this rapey, molesting type of person.
But he's a good example because it's heightening something that's already existed in him.
Absolutely.
So that was fine, but that's where like the meteorite thing became like kind of weird. Where it's like, it's one thing if it's the fear is that it's going to heighten the potential of it if you go down a certain way of thinking or acting or whatever.
Right.
And they could have used that in the same way with the husband who is like pandering. It's not real. Like he doesn't truly believe in his wife or stuff like, and using that. But there were characters that didn't fall in line. And then I was just like, well, now your message is now becoming a little more blurred and whatever. And I think that's where people are butting up against what are you trying to do with this? Because you're oversimplifying a very complicated thing, and it's not always as black and white as that. I love that they're trying to tackle this complicated thing, but in tackling a complicated message like that, you then run into this issue, especially when you're trying to show it through. Do you have any feelings?
Yeah, no, I don't have any thoughts. I don't want to get into it. No. Well, the thing I think that maybe the piece missing from this is that there was a social connotation to this, because it wasn't just the meteorites, it wasn't just heightening their behavior, but it was also seeing other men lose themselves in their anger allowed them to feel like it was okay too, which I think is the whole message behind a toxic masculinity environment, is that if you see other people acting like this, you condone it complicitly, and then you start to engage in it. So it's like an escalation of behavior because of the environment you're surrounded in. I think that was what I found the most compelling about it, where it wasn't necessarily like, I wasn't trying to figure out the logic. This was one of the episodes where I kind of turned off my brain and I was like, I'm not even going to try, because for a lot of them, I'm like, the logic needs to hold up for me. But I was like, for this one, they're obviously going for a deeper message here. And I think that's what I took away from it. I just saw like, okay, they're acting like this. Well, now I can let the rage out, and I'm going to beat the shit out of him because he's coming to my house. And maybe it was giving them an excuse to. Maybe they started to see it and used it as an excuse to let their anger out and all that. I thought the guy in the beginning, I don't even think there was heightening his sexuality. I think he was just doing that.
That's kind of what I meant,
Because I think he actually was like, the meteorite didn't maybe affect him. I don't know.
He was already in danger well before.
Maybe.
That.
I do think so. Absolutely.
I think I like the beginning. Like, I think I like the first
strong.
half more than the second half, because the second half,
it
was that idea of like you already had a strong premise and idea and whatever, and it connected, and then it just started getting to ludicrous and oversimplifying it
a little bit.
It's almost like a sketch where you don't know how to tag it with a button or whatever. There are a few episodes throughout all of the Twilight Zone that kind of struggle with that, like what's your conclusion? It was only like the oversimplification of it, where, I don't know, when you title something like Not All Men and then you make it so simplified too, it's like you're only going to enrage the people who are already going to butt up against that, rather than doing something that's going to land, like a message that's going to land and make them actually think about it, rather than push them away. And it almost felt like that's what this ultimately ended up doing. It's going to push away the people who aren't willing to hear what the message of the story was.
Yeah.
Let's say you're a toxic guy and you're watching this. You have anger issues or something. And you're watching and you're like, I don't even know how you're taking it in. Maybe you're like, oh yeah, this is pretty fucking cool. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, well, crazy. It was like a monster thing. But then like at the end, it's like, oh, I just chose not to. It's like, excuse me, you think like. What, you think I choose to be like this, whatever? Like that is alienating, and it's not the wrong message. It's like, yeah, that is a positive message in general, because in general, you know, I choose to not get in bar fights. It's true. A lot of times I want to punch somebody in the face, and I'm like, yeah, no, I don't, because I don't want to get punched back, or I don't want to explain to my friends, like, yeah, I fought a guy in a parking lot because, you know, I felt like he had wronged me.
Absolutely.
Or just because that guy's acting that way, you don't lower yourself to that. Yeah.
And it is, so at the end of the day, it is a choice. Like, it is a binary choice. There's like a lot of other factors and all this stuff, but you're right. It alienates a group of people that should benefit from that kind of message. Mm-hmm. And then it's like people who are already on board with that and are like, yeah, I'm actually making the right choice to not feed into my anger, especially men, or to feed into my anger. But that kind of bugs me because now it's oversimplifying it. So it's like you're kind of alienating both groups and you're not really reaching the people that could benefit from the message. I'll say that about it.
Well, in addition to that too, because it makes the women infallible in the story too. And some of the women in that are not good people. Like they're reacting horribly, they're enablers and whatever.
Yes.
But there's nothing turned onto that, so then you're just be like, oh, so they can do whatever the fuck they want. Like that it's just feeding into that even worse. It's just it's the opposite attraction magnet. It's just gonna push it in the total opposite direction. You're gonna lose who you're trying to change over with that mentality.
Right.
So we had a not all men experience in real life.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Not to be
Wait, you weren't there for that?
No, I don't know.
He was inside and Trev was putting the stuff in the car, and all of a sudden I look up and I was like, oh, whoa! And Anthony turns around and he looks up.
Yeah, there was enough time. I wasn't even looking the direction. She reacted to it and I turned and there was still enough time. And then
all of a sudden we see in the sky like this big fireball, and then it just like explodes.
Yeah, the craziest, most vivid meteorite I've ever seen. The longest, thinnest tail, but it was like this flaming basketball in the sky. You could see pieces breaking off from
Which
it.
was the craziest thing. And then Anthony just goes, this looks like something that we would go investigate.
Yeah, let's go check it out.
So
and find the steaming meteorite.
So then when I was watching Not All Men and I see that, I was like, oh my God, I experienced that, but we didn't get to go see what it looked like.
We're like, no, we're not going to make those things.
We're like,
we're going to stay here.
No, we're not going to go.
It was crazy though. It was like parallel with the roof of the house.
It was. It just like it arced. It was the crazy, and I felt so bad because Trev didn't have time.
Oh, it was like
enough
a
time to go
act.
see it.
Whoa!
And he's like, oh man. I was like, I'm so sorry, but it was so beautiful and so just like, did we just see that?
I almost feel like I have to have like a artist's rendering of the moment.
Like,
Get over yourself.
Trev missed the greatest thing I've ever witnessed in my entire life.
This is my favorite story that Trev wasn't a part of. Oh,
God. So 6 Degrees of Freedom. We should discuss that one next.
Yeah. One of my favorites of the new series.
I really enjoyed that one. Truly.
I really wish that they just made a series of that.
Yeah.
Like I was saying to you guys earlier. It's just, it was so intriguing.
Or like a continuation, because that was in the first season, right? Yeah, it was. It was the first season. I almost wanted like an unprecedented, like, we're just going to do a follow-up.
I would have enjoyed that.
It was
absolutely.
Because it seemed to have like connective Easter eggs and stuff throughout, like even more so than the other stuff, where I thought it was, are they going to do like this bigger story? Because the show got canceled after 2 seasons, I feel like they're... Yeah,
it did? I did not know that.
Yeah.
I thought it was just COVID and shutdowns and stuff.
Unfortunately, it got canceled. I almost feel like there was more getting planned with all of
That
it.
would be very cool.
And there were things that I was just like going down a rabbit hole of my own like theories and stuff with 6 Degrees of Freedom specifically that I thought, oh, this is absolutely leading to some bigger idea or thing, and I still believe that's possible, but I unfortunately don't think we're gonna maybe see what that was leading to.
I was actually gonna talk about the ending because I don't know if I got it completely or not.
Okay,
Because
well, I would say anyone who hasn't seen it, it's a great episode. If you're going to watch no other one, just watch that one.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
High point. It stands alone.
Yeah.
It's not super horrifying either, but it's really thrilling. But
It's not. It's more suspenseful.
So at the beginning, Earth is going into a nuclear war, right?
Okay, even before we get into this,
Yeah.
I thought that was really relevant to now too. Like
Oh.
just like
Oh,
in-
yeah,
course.
Because
definitely.
you remember how there was like that ship that was also leaving at the time? It seems so like it was almost predicting the COVID pandemic scenario of just like you are leaving this fucking shit show or whatever.
Yeah.
I just thought that was an interesting thing that happened 2 years. This episode came out 2 years before that.
Also,
It's,
we've been on
weird.
like the edge of world-ending disaster for decades now.
Yeah,
with,
yeah.
with
But it
bombs
lined up
in
so,
general.
Absolutely.
It lined up so specific with an actual
Mhm.
scenario
Oh, yeah,
that was
sure.
like that I just thought was interesting.
Sure, yeah.
But yes,
absolutely.
yeah. So
So let's just assume that was happening, right?
Okay.
Or do we agree that actually
No.
happened? Oh, you don't think so? What about you?
I think that's part of the test.
Yeah,
Really?
because that's kind of what they
That's
say
what
at the
they
end.
admit at the end. Yeah.
Mm.
That
They do.
They
I-
almost had. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
I was just
I love this. This is what I love about this because especially with something like this, you can analyze it. There is a lot of stuff,
This
and it
episode
isn't
was
just like
just
pointless,
so
like
beautiful.
red herrings or
Throwers,
whatever.
right,
It's
yeah.
great.
I'm almost positive that at the end of the episode, and you just see the little captions, and they basically just say that they were able to get to us, I guess, or something of that nature.
Pass through the filter.
Yeah, but I don't remember if they said it or if it was just like the people that said it. But I feel like they also
I
did
think they
say
both
it.
said
They
it,
did.
yeah.
Okay, that it only took them to like fake salvation or something like that, where they had to think that the world was destroyed
Well,
in
it said
order
it
for them
took
to do
to
it.
the brink of collapse
Yes,
for them to.
exactly. Yes,
But that's why that can be open.
But
to
it showed that they
interpretation.
that they had the potential.
yes.
Right.
But I thought that they were saying that the nuke did not happen.
It did.
That they
That's
had
exactly
that
it.
they had to believe that it did
It was
in order for them to go.
These 6 were the potential. They were the guinea pigs of what if this is like some of the better of the human
Definitely.
race. Do they have the potential of moving on or being as heightened as we, this like all-knowing alien kind of persona are? Which I found interesting that it was so different from every other kind of iteration, especially like the Twilight Zone, where it's always just like evil aliens coming in like to serve mankind of thing.
Right.
It was more of like, do they have the potential of rising to the ranks of us? And this was their test. And so the one guy who was losing his mind, he's both wrong and right at the same time.
Yeah.
He's wrong in his conspiracy of what he thought the scenario was, but he is right in that it was a conspiracy and it was all a fabrication. He was trying to reason with the reality he knew of this giant studio that could have spun the ship in a way that made it feel like there were... But it was because it was being orchestrated by aliens. That is what was happening. Which is why he got to be the only one who was actually gifted with the reality and the sight of it all. It's wild. That's why I wanted more to it. It's a very interesting idea,
Right.
especially since he broke over to the other side. He doesn't die in a fireball like we think. It's this
Right.
projected image because of like these tentacle screens and stuff. I thought it was fascinating. There was so much to deconstruct with that, and it was such a great idea of how you can do a bottle episode, an isolated thing, really fucking well. I loved it. I really loved that episode.
Yeah.
Even if all the other ones were bad, that one was like enough to kind of elevate the whole series.
Yeah, I don't know if I really had a theory about it. It was just, I guess I maybe got caught up in the logistics of it, which I shouldn't apply to, which I'm not even knocking
Sure.
the episode at all, because I feel like I maybe glommed onto the wrong details. and was
There's
like,
a lot thrown at you in that episode.
yeah,
too.
because when they leave, it almost, so my just gut interpretation of it was like everything happened for real until they got into the spaceship.
Right.
Okay.
That's just what I was thinking.
Right.
Everything happens because it's so realistic. You know what I mean? And what the aliens say is like the humans destroy each other before they can pass over to us, right?
Right.
So that's where I kind of got caught up with like, wait, did they actually, or because it was like maybe if we did initiate nuclear strikes on each other, it wouldn't have destroyed the entire population.
Right.
It would have destroyed most people, but these people actually got past and showed that they were worth salvation. So what would they give them salvation from? If you know what I mean? Like, what are they saving them from? Themselves for the potential of that to happen? Or the fact that it did happen, didn't kill everybody, and they were saying these people got out on time and they were only pressured to get onto the spaceship because of what actually happened.
Maybe
and
it's
now
kind of like a War of the
them.
Worlds thing, too, where it's like
Which they did mention.
Yeah, they're going to exterminate the world if they can't prove themselves sort of ideal.
Oh.
Because they're very tentacly like War of the Worlds as well.
Sure.
Even though those are the more robots than the aliens themselves. But, nerd. But like that idea of like they've saved themselves, like they've saved the Earth in a way of like us deeming this having to be like this extermination of this planet because they then pose a damage or like this disease beyond. This is why they're needed. I almost wanted more from it because there was so much you could dive into with that.
Well, I thought that what they were saying was that they're worthy of salvation is because then they're like allowed to go live on Mars. That Earth will be destroyed,
right? And
now we will save you, and you will be able to live among us, type of thing.
Oh, so what you're posing there is that everything did happen on Earth, then?
No. Oh. So the world is going to get destroyed because of reasons.
That's an interesting idea, though. Is that a projection of Mars, or is that the reality that they actually did make it to Mars?
That's what I'm saying. When you apply some of the logic from some of the details they give you, it seems like everything legitimately happened. It's when this guy jumped out. Like it's like, you know what I mean? Some things have to be real or not. Like are they actually on Mars? Did Earth actually blow up? It seems like both are actually true.
They may be. So if we're thinking of like logically, how could we get the ship to somewhere else or whatever, so that this thing, it's the projecting this falsity of what the reality is to them in the cockpit. They take over the audio, which is also why the guy sees the figure in their electrical equipment. So the reality of them actually leaving Earth is all fine. They've then altered communication between Earth's space station to the ship and giving them a false idea of what's happening on Earth.
Yes.
They do leave normal, projecting maybe some false thing to the center as well, so that they think they've just left as normal and whatever. And so that continues on. They have then left the atmosphere, so that loss of weight, that is reality. That is them actually leaving.
Right.
But he already can understand that there's maybe something going on, something feels wrong. It's because of the communication is already false. The news of this attack is fake. And so then when they're out of Earth's realm and out of any contact that the space station could have with the shuttle, that is when they then can direct them into whatever dimension, reality, whatever they have, because there's no way for them to signal otherwise. They then can fabricate it. And what I thought was an interesting with that radiation shield help with that idea, because they can't even look out and perceive what's actually going on as well. So I think that's maybe where you could find the logic in it.
Sure, yeah.
But that's also me just piecing it all together. But I like that could add up. It doesn't feel like that's complete falsity or doesn't hold up with the I think that's why I liked it. It's like I could think of something that made logic to it, whether that was what they were intending or not.
Right. I think either way, it didn't ruin it for me.
Yeah.
Whether I could apply logic to it or not didn't bother me, because there were so many things that do line up, and most things do line up. And if you want to take it a different way, you can, or whatever. The whole thing could be a simulation. It's still a fascinating story and a good cool like message and a really good
the character dynamics too, and like the breakdown of that, and like it's fascinating no matter what the reality really is, because it was just like a great character piece with them.
Oh yeah. I mean, the line that got me was when the captain was basically saying that we knew that there was going to be a possibility that we wouldn't get back to them, but we didn't know that it would be like them that we would have to worry about, or something of that nature,
right,
where it was like, we knew that it would take us.
We were the ones that would be worried about not them.
That just was like, oh, that is so interesting, because there was the whole thing with one of the women was married, and she was like, oh, well, I thought that I was getting a round trip to Mars, and I didn't get, and I thought I had a marriage, and I don't have either. And it was like, oh wow, that, like, it was so sad to think that they are the only survivors when they were not trained to even think of that possibility, and yet that's what they have to think of.
Right. I mean, that episode had so many connective stuff. That's why I felt like there was so much relevance, or like that there was some bigger thing they were leading to. Like even the beginning of the Nightmare at 30,000 Feet episode, Adam Scott is standing right in front of a giant billboard that says "Mission to Mars."
Yes.
Like there seemed to be a lot of stuff like that was leading to it. I did have a crazy rabbit hole theory at the very beginning, because I was really getting into the Easter eggs and the interpreting what it was about that episode. I need to read off of it, because I started feeling like a conspiracy theorist kind of thing. Okay, so you know how the beginning of the episode starts with like briefing number 10-15-6-8-16. I immediately went into, that's where I came up with the theory of like, oh, 10-15 is the Twilight Zone, so that's the specific of that, whatever. It's like, but why the relevance of those other numbers? Because like it just seemed relevant, and it was like 6 degrees. Is that what the 6 stands for? Is it something else? Is it further? Okay, so episode 6 of season 2 is entitled 8.
Yes.
So it's already feeding into the 10-15-6-8. And it's also the 16th episode of the series. So I already felt like there was some super connection between 6 Degrees of Freedom and episode 8. And the sets seem very similar too. It's very isolation connective as well. There's
the one with the octopus.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's did you see?
I did not.
Yeah.
Oh, 8.
But
that's cool.
I couldn't figure out ultimately what it was, but it was like the more I delved into it, the more connection between the two seemed. And the 8 episode is very like The Thing meets Alien kind of thing. It's an isolation thing, but like it's also a Whipple station. It's in like the snow thing, and their discovery is almost the polar opposite of 6 Degrees, where 6 Degrees is more of like the potential advancement of humankind, or the saving of it.
Right.
And 8 is the total fucking human damnation at the end of that. That's a great episode too.
Oh yeah.
It's fascinating. I don't even necessarily want to ruin it, but
terrifying.
Yes, it's great.
That is the most horror episode, I think.
It's the most horror heavy. It's the most horror homaging as well. Like if you know any of those kind of things, it's great. It's like this weird, I don't even want to say it because I don't want to ruin it for you. But that's another great episode. But that's why I felt like there was so much attention to detail. There was this idea of continuing stuff. There was just like with the Blurry Man being this continuation of this legacy, this idea of continuing on with Twilight Zone or going deeper into the Twilight Zone. There seemed like there were genuine ideas where I'm so bummed to not see where they were ultimately going with the show. And who's really talking about it? It feels like a series worth kind of like looking at more. Even if you disregarded it initially, I think it's one of those that honestly is worth looking into more. It's the best version of it since the original, by far. The 80s miniseries and the movies are laughable compared to, I think, what the new one is about. And I don't think it got the recognition it deserved.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I was pretty lukewarm on. I watched the first episode of the second season when I had first watched the 1950s episodes, and I was like, yeah,
it's all right.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, I was like, all right. I mean, I've heard this kind of story.
Jacob ones.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, I've kind of heard this story before. It's been told. I kind of, it was cool. It was all right.
That one's got like great cinematography that kind of helps you through maybe the lack of like the advancing of the story and stuff too.
Right. But, and there wasn't much to it. It was pretty surface level. But I'm so glad I revisited this. I mean, honestly, I fell in love with the show, and then it made me appreciate the original series.
Yeah.
So like, if you've never experienced the original series before, where you like Black Mirror, or you like any kind of like, Goosebumps, or, we got some big goose heads in the crowd. Definitely watch this series if the black and white version is not as palatable. And then you might find yourself watching old versions of the episodes and really come
go down these rabbit hole of Easter eggs to see what maybe trying to come up with your own thing based off of the older episodes and what they were inspired by.
But I feel like with other fandoms, they don't really cater to the fact to go down a rabbit hole, but it's the Twilight Zone. So it's all about perception and analyzing and all of these things. So it makes the most sense to try and like delve into it more. But
I could go beat by beat of little things I saw in each episode. Like there's stuff in the blurry man where there's like symbols in the background where I was like, oh, that's a representative of that. Oh, that's projecting that. That's great.
Yeah.
There's
endless.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's great. If you love deconstructing stuff to that level, there's a surprising amount of it for some mainstream show of like yet another remake. But like this shows, I think, the better way to do remakes or reboots than anything else of recent that I can think of.
Right.
I do agree with that, but I also feel that it probably didn't get as much love because people thought that it would just not be as great. Although it came at a time where everyone was able to realize how amazing Jordan Peele is at horror and everything.
That's why I'm surprised it didn't last longer.
And I feel as though it's because it was distributed in a very confusing way. That's the only thing I can, and because it was like, because the marketing, they had it. They were telling us that it was here. They were telling us that it was going to be new. They told us who most of the actors and actresses were going to be in the episodes. They were just like, oh, Adam Scott and Camille Nanjiani. And, like, it's like, oh, yeah, these are really cool people and everything. And it's going to be awesome to watch. But I don't know. I feel that it either suffered because people just will not trust reboots or remakes anymore, and also because of the distribution of it.
I definitely say if you haven't seen the show, give it a fucking chance because it's solid. It's surprisingly solid, and whether you're a fan of the original or not, is there maybe something you would have done to improve what you've seen? Is there something that could have highlighted it?
Again, I think we called out that shaving off a couple of minutes of the Adam Scott episode would have probably made that perfection.
It's not even like rewrites as much as just tightening it up.
I think that's all it is.
Yeah.
All of my criticism that actually bothered me was just about length or playing their hand too quickly. That's it. But I don't even know if I could have reworked it. I think it was done really well.
I think I agree.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked it. I'm glad you guys liked it too.
Oh
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really enjoyable.
Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for our discussion on Twilight Zone. This has been Horror Adorer. If you have any other horror-related thing you would like us to discuss, or your own theories or favorites about the Twilight Zone of yesteryear or now, leave it in a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. You're now exiting Horror Adorer. Thank you so much for watching. And remember,
Keep
it
creepy.